And we're live. Let's get this rolling. We already have been getting into it before we even got
Yeah,
recording.
man.
So I'm getting more and more excited for this conversation. So first things first, Cory, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited for today's talk.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, brother. You know what I'm saying? It's yes, it's an honor and a privilege, man.
It's my pleasure. It's my
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah.
We have a
It
lot of
is
topics
your
to dive
pleasure,
into.
ain't it? You know.
It's my pleasure, your honor, who's counting.
Hey, come on.
Uh, we're going to dive into a bunch of topics today, but just before we get into everything that we're going to talk about, why don't you let everybody know who you are, what you do, and what your area of specialty is?
Yeah, man. So my name is Cory Armstrong. I am an online fitness coach. I've been coaching in the online space really since 2019, but before that, personal training. So in total, I've been coaching in fitness and nutrition and health we're going on was 7 years now. 7 years I've been in the space, and what I specialize in is helping guys get ripped. Helping guys lose body fat, gain muscle, and really build more confidence, better health, and reach their full potential. We just start in this aspect of the health realm, so that's what
So
it's
you've been
about.
in the fitness game for 7 years now, and that led you to what you're doing today, which is a lot of good work, man. I think you're
Thanks.
really making a difference out there. I mean, all the business and the numbers and everything, which we'll get into later, is all nice,
Mhm.
but the actual lives you're impacting, because you're dealing with something real. It's very visceral. No
Mhm.
pun intended. It's very much
Yeah,
dealing
yeah.
with the
Hey, come
mind and
on,
body,
man. Come on,
right?
come on with the pun. You know what I'm saying? I like that. I like that.
Yeah, that was not rehearsed,
Yeah.
real time, but it's true. You're impacting thousands of lives, through all the clients you work with, and now you've been scaling out your team, so you guys are taking on even more individuals, and
Mhm.
helping people get in shape is just it's not about the physical results or the number you see on the scale. That confidence that translates into their lives, they're able to play with their kids, they're able to have more vitality,
Yeah.
have the energy to pursue their goals in life. I mean, you're doing so much more than just health and fitness.
Yeah. 100%. I was actually telling my team earlier today because I had a meeting right before this with them. One of the things I'm most grateful for right now is just the ability to be able to impact lives, hundreds and thousands of lives, even in ways that, you know, really improve their day to day, like their lifestyle. And it's hundreds and thousands of people I'll never come in contact with, just specifically because, like, I put out some good videos, and I maybe encourage this person who encourage that person who, it's just sort of this awesome tool that we have, being connected through social media, that if you put out some good information, man, it can have this domino effect and affect hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. And I just think it's dope that I'm just a kid from Detroit who decided to, turn his life around and make some different choices. And I wanted to give the things that was handed down to me back to people in the form of information that they could consume. And that was just, easy to implement, like, right now. And I just think it's great that it's grown to this capacity and people are getting value from it.
I love that. You and Eminem single-handedly put Detroit on the
It's,
map.
it's only us, man.
It's only the two of you. That's all I can think of.
Who else do you know from Detroit besides him?
Besides Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Eminem. So I want to get into the backstory. I mean, how did all this start? We're talking about all the great work that you're doing today. What
Yeah.
got you on this path of health and fitness and bettering yourself?
Oh, man. My origin story, I would say it dates back to, like, middle school, high school days of, like, seeing just aspirational figures, like, being in shape and wanting to, like, get in better shape. I remember I remember seeing that movie. You remember that movie 300 with the
Yeah,
Spartans?
of course
Yeah.
I do. It's about the Persians and the Greeks.
Yeah, of course you
Of
know
course.
about that
Of
shit.
course.
Yeah, that shit brings back memories, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I tapped into some ancestral, I don't know,
Yeah.
hive mind when I watched
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's almost like you were there. But no, like, what I remember specifically being a young kid, seeing, like, these guys who were the embodiment of masculinity. Like, you remember those guys, like, they
Mhm.
were all chiseled, ripped, and essentially, like, they stood for what? Like, we're going to go into battle to fight for what we believe in, right? And win or lose or draw, like we're gonna go after it. And so that inspired me a lot as a kid, just kind of coming from where I came from, and just not really having a lot of positive male role models. Anybody who knows Detroit knows it's like shit's rough there, right? So we didn't have a lot of positive male role models. So kind of see that, it's like, oh man, this is cool. This is something I would like to be like. And I wanted to start with my body, but like at that time, I'm young. I don't really know much. I'm just doing push-ups and sit-ups at home. But I remember that movie inspired me to start doing like 300 push-ups and sit-ups a day. Like it was just a thing I just like invented after that. And that was kind of where it all started. It was many years later that
Just
I
a
actually got into it.
quick pause in your story. I'm
Mhm.
gonna let you keep going, but quick
Yeah.
pause. If you had asked me what inspired Cory to get into health and fitness and everything you're doing today, there is no way I would have guessed the Spartan soldiers from the movie
Smart soldier,
300
man.
inspired you to do 300 push-ups a day.
That's
That's
what it
my
was.
mind is blown. I got my money's worth out of this conversation already.
Yeah, that's exclusive information, man. I don't know if I've said that publicly before. So so you heard it here first, right?
I
That's
love
what it
it.
started.
I love it. Breaking
Um,
news.
yeah, like, really I was off and on with fitness from that point. Just like again, doing what I knew, push-ups and sit-ups at home. When I got in college, that's when I got like friends who like knew how to work out in the gym. It was like my first exposure to that. But I just kind of was messing around, bro. Like, how it is when you're that young, like you don't have a real program. You're following like what bodybuilders say in magazines or what your friends doing. And, kind of fast forward, like I seen some changes, but not really anything substantial. So I just remember getting out of college and, you know, I was in this stage in my life where things were not as advertised. I don't know if you experienced this, Puya, like when you graduate. Did you go to college? I don't know if we were talking about that.
So I did, I did first year university. I went just for the experience because I knew from high
Mhm.
school I'm not going to pursue formal education. I had
Okay.
decided already. I got onto Jim Rohn when I was like 15, 16.
Okay.
I
All
knew I'm
right.
not going to go the school route, but I did want
Yeah.
the college experience. So I actually went to university
Mhm.
first year. I lived, on campus. I got that whole experience. But as soon as the year was wrapped up, I was like, all right, back to business.
You're smarter than me, essentially, is what you're saying. Like, so, so,
I just took a gamble.
yo,
Thankfully, I was right.
so essentially, that what you're talking about, like, I came to those realizations of these things after already graduating because, the college route for many who may be listening here in America, it's like it's laid out as this is the way to get an exceptional life. You go to college, you get good grades, you get a degree, and that degree takes you to your career. That's gonna move you down the path of excellence in your life, right? And man, I get out of college, it wasn't nothing like that, man. I was back at home with my mom, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
With no car, depending on her for everything. And I'm gonna get to how this ties into fitness in a minute, but it kind of was like the stepping stone of me being dissatisfied with my life, right? Like
Mhm.
that's what I'm getting at. It's like, internally, like I was just not liking where I was at. I was feeling like I was taking steps backwards instead of taking steps forward. And a tragic event actually occurred in the midst of that. I was 23 at the time. One of my best friends who was 22, she passed away, right? She died from sickle cell anemia. She had been struggling with it all through high school, which is where we met. And she got really, really sick and just passed away. And man, it just shook my paradigm because one, this was somebody who was like really close to me in age. Like I'm 23, she's 22, and I'm seeing her die. It's like, yo, like you can die young. Like there's no guarantee that you're gonna make it to old age. And then the other thing was, I actually thought I was gonna marry this girl one day. Like that
Wow.
was the thing I think hurt them. Like it hurt really bad because it was like we dated initially, like when she was a freshman, I was a sophomore in high school. I was way too immature at that point, but like she was one of those girls that she was like the good girl that like I knew that if I got my life together, I could come back to her and we would like make it work. And it was just like something that was in the back of my mind. I never got to tell her that, but you
Mm.
know, that was what I was thinking. So that happens, man. And I'm sitting in the funeral, like, man, I'm too hardcore to cry, but like I'm like sad. And like the people were saying all these nice things about her. Obviously, she was amazing. But the thing that stood out was like they were talking about all these things that she like who she was, but not who she wanted to be. Like they didn't never bring up like the real dreams and desires and goals that she had for her life. And I remember I was like, why is they not talking about the big stuff that she wanted to do? Well, she didn't never get to live those things out. Like time got cut short too quick. And that sparked something in me. I was like, man, if I were to die today, like what would they say about me? And all the answers I was getting back was just like similar. It's like it's nothing significant, nothing substantial. And I didn't like that thought. I felt like, man, like I could pass right now and I have done nothing with my life. And that disgusted me so much so that I was like, I have to do something. I have to change my ways because I could pass tomorrow too. So that was the thing that was seated in my brain after that experience, that I have to do something. And I wanted to start changing my life in a way that would be impactful to other people. Like I wanted to give value to other people and leave something behind when I pass, right? And I didn't know what to do at that time. I didn't know it'd be this. Trust me, I didn't know. But I was like, I just want to get better. And the only thing I have control over right now is me. And I started reading books that week, right? Like, and I started working on my body. And that was kind of like the initial stepping stone of me like, all right, I'm really going to learn how to get in shape now because, you know, I only have control over me. So let me make me the best version of me.
So you started pretty much right away.
Yeah. What actually ended up happening, it was like this odd turn of events, bro. Like, I feel like, you know, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, like just kind of shifted everything for this to line up. You would never guess these things. You know, most people wouldn't, but I'm about to share it with you. About to get another exclusive here, bro. So I have a degree in construction management, which is, I have a bachelor's in construction management and an associate's in civil engineering technology. And basically that's like roads, bridges, like outdoor type shit getting built. Like I'm the guy that's inspecting it to make sure that it works, right? So essentially, like in Michigan, where I'm from in Detroit, it's seasonal. So when it gets cold out, you cannot work outside or you're gonna freeze your ass off, right? And those that do are like the highest paid individuals. Well, I'm a grunt, right? I'm a low-level technician working my way up. So when winter comes, they do what? Seasonal layoff. They say, all right, you're done for this season. We'll bring you back in the spring. When that happens, that was right after she died. And so I was working out at this gym regularly. And I was telling the manager who I connected with that I had just got laid off, but I didn't want to take the winter off. He's like, bro, why don't you just work here? I'll hire you as a salesman here at the gym. You're here all the time anyway. Why not learn the skill of sales? That same guy introduced me to a multi-level marketing group that focused all on like knowledge, right? So their product wasn't like you've obviously heard of multi-level marketing groups,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Their product wasn't like something tangible. It wasn't a good, it was a mindset product. It was like books and seminars, right? So it's kind of like I got laid off, got hired as this guy as a salesperson just for the winter. And then he's like, hey, join this multi-level marketing group. We read books and we teach entrepreneurship. So it was this odd turn of events. It kind of was like
This story sounds like it could go either way. It could be an incredible story, or next thing you know, you're in a cult somewhere with a bag over your
right.
head. I mean, I'm just waiting to see where this goes.
Yeah, it's yo, my story is strange. I get it. But that's basically what happened is, bro, like I joined this multi-level marketing group. I started as a salesperson at my gym, all while training myself to get into the best shape of my life. So I tell people this stage of my life was sort of like my master's degree, because what happened is I spent 3 years learning sales and marketing from this gym. And then I always was doing the entrepreneurship, multi-level marketing stuff at nighttime. So it was like morning, through afternoon, I was working sales and marketing. And in the evenings, I was learning business entrepreneurship. And it was kind of like a 3-year period. I ain't make no money in this company, bro. Like, you already know what it is. Like, barely anybody makes money in those. But I did get the education of like what it really took to be an entrepreneur.
Sure, yeah.
And 3 years of that, And then
arguably, for in their defense, they gave you the right mindset, attitude, some of the trainings that is making you all the money you're making today. So it was just delayed payment.
yes. And that, look, I'm gonna be honest, that's who introduced me to Jim Rohn and fucking all these, high level people that we know as business gurus. Like, I would have never known about that if it wasn't for this group. So I'm infinitely grateful to them, for that experience. I tell people that's like my second degree. That was like my master's degree doing that. So yeah, to answer your question, man, I don't even know if I really answered it, but like I
You
wanted.
definitely answered. You gave me more than I bargained for over here. I
Okay.
wasn't ready for all the side tangents. I'm sitting here
Yeah.
at the edge of my seat. This is the most excited I've been for anybody's backstory. So this is awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I've known you for so long, but I barely knew the real you or the real story,
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah.
This is why I love this. These
Right.
conversations just open the door for so much more. One thing I was thinking the whole time is that you're such a prime example of the saying that your education begins when your schooling ends. I
Yeah.
say that all the time because I'm a big believer in self-education, and I think formal education is all good, whether you
Mhm.
have it or not. Either way, that's a personal choice, and I don't
Yeah.
have anything against either direction. But above and beyond that, the self-education is a must. I don't care if you
Absolutely.
have 10 PhDs or if you are a
Yeah.
dropout. The self-education is a pivotal part of growing and pursuing that potential and who you're meant to become. So
Right.
that's why I love that saying. Your education begins when your schooling ends.
Yeah.
Yours was a perfect example. You just finished school, you're doing this job, you get laid off, you're not really happy with the circumstances, and then you get introduced to a whole different world. Come learn sales, come learn self development, come learn
Mhm.
on how you can build your own future, and that, I guess, set you off then.
It did. It did, man. I like what you said about that because like education is, it's the most important thing. I think like the reason why people aren't where they are, where they want to be, I should say, is because they're doing the best they can with their current level of information. But that current level of information got them where they are, so they need more, right? And essentially, like when you really dive deeply into self education, it's like you're taking full ownership of what you learn and what kind of results you want to get in your life. Whereas when you're going to school, a lot of that's just predetermined for you, right? Like essentially, like the whole path of like me going to college was determined for me. I didn't have a choice. And then when I even picked what I was going to college for, I only picked it because like somebody said, "Yo, you would be good at that." I didn't even know anything about it, right? So I didn't choose my path. My path was picked for me. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. Your paths are essentially picked for you. And essentially, once you start self-educating, that's when you can take control of your life and pick your own path instead of just going with what's been designated for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You learn to take responsibility for your own life. And,
Yeah.
I think me and you are both the same because we're very like minded in this manner that,
Mhm.
we want to be in charge of our own lives. But it's crazy to me how so many people don't. I don't know what that is, but
I
I
think I
people
know what
say all
it
the
is.
time, fear of failure,
Yeah.
I get in my own way or whatever it is. People just don't want to be in charge of their own lives. They want
Yeah.
to be told what to do or go to school or follow this proven path as
Yeah.
opposed to pave your own way.
I think like if I may chime in on that thought, like I use this analogy when I talk to my clients a lot, and I say like the journey to success in your life is like being on a road trip, right? And it's like there's two passengers in the car, so you got you in the driver's seat, and then you have your excuses in the passenger seat. And because this is a new journey, right? And you've never been down these roads, it could be a little bit frightening, right? It could be treacherous. The winds could be blowing hard. It could be storming outside, right? There's a lot of uncertainty wrapped into this journey because you've never traveled these roads before. And when it feels uncertain and scary, a lot of the times what people have a natural tendency to do is be like, look at the excuses, take the keys out. All right, you drive the car. Why don't you drive? I can't handle this, right?
Mm,
And then what happens is those excuses, they take you to wherever the fuck excuses take you. And it might not be the path that you wanted to go down, right? You go somewhere, but you might not go where you originally wanted to go.
Hmm.
And a lot of the times, like that's where the story ends for most people is their excuses are driving the car and they have no idea where they're headed. Whereas I encourage my clients to do is I'm like, all right, no, you take those keys back, right? And you drive your own car, drive your own shit, take ownership of everything. Everything is your responsibility. And you drive that car and you figure out a way to get to that destination.
I
I
love
think
that
that's the difference
analogy.
between winners and losers. Yeah.
I love that analogy, man. I love that. I mean, it's a good analogy because it's kind of funny and entertaining to just visualize your excuses as like a passenger next to you.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's what makes it resonate more.
Mhm.
And I just love the saying of, your excuses take you where excuses take you.
Yeah.
That one definitely resonated with me. It's so true. I think it's so practical because every now and then, if you're not on the right path, you could just ask yourself, am I driving right now or are my excuses driving?
Yeah. Who's driving the car?
Who's really leading the way?
That's what I ask my clients. Who's driving the car right now?
Yeah.
You know?
And with half a donut in their face, they're gonna say my excuses. Just kidding. I know your clients are
Yeah,
good. They have
man.
some accountability in place. Okay, so all of that got you into business, and
Mhm,
then that's when I met you, and we met in a similar network, and
mhm,
I've seen you in this path, and I've seen you grow and scale and become
mhm.
who you are today. And that led to changing the lifestyle a little bit. You could say, upgrading the lifestyle, or really just changing it to living on your own terms and taking some more courageous decisions. So you moved to Florida.
Yeah,
Now you're living the Florida life.
yeah,
How has that transition been like going from somewhere? I mean, I know all about snow and cold places. So going
yeah,
from
you do.
somewhere cold and snowy and all of that to living in Florida, different lifestyle. What has that been like?
Man, I tell people when they ask me about moving to Florida, like it literally is the best decision I've ever made. It's a few different reasons because people, and it's funny because you asked me the other day, like, yo, what's going on in Florida right now? Like, are y'all okay? Right? Like, people, people often have a perception of certain places based off what they see in the media. And that may not necessarily be the whole truth, right? That may be true for some, but it's not true for everyone, right? And it's important to recognize, like, you see what you believe, guys. So if you believe that, then it's true, But essentially, when I moved here, I was looking at three things. I call them three W's, right? So
I already know what one of the W's is. I don't even have to think twice. As soon as you said that, I was like, "Is it?" I wonder where it ranks. That's all I thought.
so one is like it's beautiful women here, obviously, right? Like you get a little. I'm in
Check.
South Florida. I'm like right outside Miami, so like you get every flavor you could want is here, right? Then you've got the weather, right? Which is for me that was a big selling point, and simply because being it from the cold, like you sort of deal with a lot of, I'm not gonna say limitations, but like just things aren't as accessible at certain times of the year. Like I just talked about a whole industry was like, yo, we shutting this down
Hmm.
for a few months. Like I really enjoy certain things like walking outside first thing in the morning and being able to, have the outdoor experience and, have those drives next to the water late at night. You can't, you don't have access to be able to do that all the time when it's like cold half the year, right? So I really wanted it like be a part of somewhere where like the weather was like nice most of the time. And last thing is wealth, right? Wealth was something I wanted to be surrounded by. I remember talking with a mentor of mine before making this decision to move down here. And he was telling me about when he left his home and surrounded himself with people who were like doing better, making more money, and like kind of like so much further ahead in life than him in certain aspects. It forced him to raise his standards of his living because the new environment was essentially like what became the new norm. Like it at all of a sudden, like it didn't make sense to not make a certain amount of money or not to dress a certain way or not to associate yourself with certain quality people because he was surrounded by a certain type of person. So I just knew here in Florida, like, especially in this area that I'm in, there's a lot of people making money. There's a lot of people who have this sort of abundance mindset and doing things in business. And, obviously it's just a bigger pot of people from where I was at to here now that I'll be exposed to as well. So I wanted to have that wealth of knowledge, the wealth of people, the abundance of obviously capital. And I thought this was a perfect place for all of that. So I don't know if that made sense, but those
I
are
love that. Yeah, that
yeah.
definitely makes sense. I mean, I'm 100% with you on the weather. Besides not having everything accessible, it's just it's just not as nice of a feeling. Every time
Hmm.
I travel for long periods of time and I'm going through Europe and whatever it is, and the weather is
Hmm.
beautiful, and you're on the beach every day and you just feel so in tune with nature and
Yeah.
just feeling amazing, and then you come back home and in this case I don't have that type of beautiful weather or
Yeah.
beach or whatever else
Yeah.
accessible. It's always like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Am I crazy to put myself in this situation where I easily could be in a
Right.
completely different situation? It's just, it's all limitations, I guess, family ties and whatever else that hold people where they are.
Hmm.
But I'm with you. I'm with you on pulling that trigger.
Yeah. Thank you, man. And you predicted it, guys. Listening, Pouya knew that I was going to move here before I moved here because I
Tell
was
them.
actually shopping
Tell
a
them
few
about this.
places. Yeah. Yeah. Like we were, because we were messaging back and forth, and I was like, yeah, I'm looking at maybe moving to Miami, maybe moving to Austin, Texas, maybe Cali. And you was like, bro, you moving to Miami. I already know you are. And here I am.
Yeah, 100%. I had no doubt. I already knew what your W's were before you even wrote them down. So I was like, I know where this
Yeah,
guy's ending up.
word.
But who's blaming you?
Yeah, Pouya ever predict something for you guys? Like, like you might want to fucking listen. He knows
Listen,
what he's
man, this
talking
is
about.
12 plus years of self education, so it's
Yeah.
not coming from a place of theory. And sitting in front of I don't know how many tens of thousands of prospects, man. So I know people. When I sit in front of
Yeah.
somebody, I'm like, all right, I know
Know what's
where
happening.
this person falls in terms of a category. I can kind
Yeah.
of categorize you quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all that being said, let's get into some health and fitness related stuff because this
Hmm.
is what you do best. Now, I'm going to try to ask you as many selfish questions as I can to help myself
Sure.
while we're here. But I'm going to ask you some questions to help everybody, when it
Yeah.
comes to diet, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to just being in your best shape. And for a lot of our audience who are salespeople, business owners, it's just as important, if not more important, right? Because
Mhm.
you have to be cognitively sharp. You have to have
Right.
the stamina to go through a 12-hour day, to grind, put in the work, be on sales calls, meetings, have that actual real stamina to go through your day, right?
Right.
A lot of entrepreneurs that I know that are at the highest levels work a lot. And to
Right.
work
Yeah.
that much and feel good, you have to, make sure you're recharging your batteries. So,
Mhm.
first, a generic question, and I don't even know if there's really an answer to this, but I just want to hear your thoughts. What's more important, diet or exercise?
Diet is the most important thing, like for sure. It's literally the thing. Like I always tell people, like 80% of your results are going to come from what nutrition you put into your body. Like the workouts themselves, they send a signal to your body to change a certain way, right? But all that change doesn't occur in the gym. So you can go sweat it out every single day in the gym for an hour, but if you're not giving your body the proper nutrients to repair itself a certain way, or you're not, for people who want to lose weight, you're not controlling those nutrients enough for your body to tap into its reserves and actually burn body fat, like you're not going to see the changes you want to see. This is why so many people waste so much money on gym memberships and never see any type of success, because yeah, you can go in there and work out all you want, but if the nutrition isn't on point, it doesn't matter, right? Like, and just basic example of this, man. Like when you really look at nutrition, like you see why people don't get results, because like you can work out for an hour. Let's say you work out for an hour, you track the calories you burn. Maybe, just for this example, it's 100 calories, right? Maybe 200 calories. Well, there's 100 calories in a banana,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like, think about that. If you worked out an hour, sweated it out, and you went and ate a banana right after, you negate that hour's worth of calorie burn. So if you're looking to lose fat, it's over, right?
Yeah, and that's considering you're eating good. And the average person getting a quick workout and then grabbing McDonald's after, you're
Yeah,
just
that's
shooting
fucking
yourself in the
tragedy.
foot.
Yeah, that's a tragedy at that point.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Okay, so definitely diet
that.
is the
Mhm,
priority, and I would agree with you as well. And I think really the way to fine tune everything is the diet for sure,
mhm,
and how you eat. There's so much that goes into diet too, because I was always into fitness, working out. I was really into bodybuilding when I was younger, but then I just got into more sports. I
mhm.
played soccer my whole life. Nowadays, more martial arts, and I lift and things like that. And I just think being healthy and longevity in general. My number one goal is to live for as long as I can. I
Right.
always talk about, as a joke, but I'm also serious that I would love to live forever. And people always say, no,
Mm.
you wouldn't want that. You'll get bored of it. I wouldn't. I can guarantee you. I could repeat my days every day. I'm happy now. Why would I want it to end?
Right.
So that's really my goal. I honestly want to. I'm hoping by the time we're older, there's
Mhm,
enough technology and some type of transformation in our world where I could live to at least 300, if not 125, conservatively for sure. And
mhm.
I'm not even kidding
Wow.
about that. I'm gonna do whatever I can to do that. Some of my biggest motivators financially are to put myself in a position so I can have access to that type of technology, right?
Right. Yeah.
And honestly, it's not out of a selfish reason because I don't care for a legacy or anything like that. I know we're going off topic here, but I think
All
it's
right. So
interesting.
let's go. Go.
It's not out of legacy or anything like that because I think that's all just nonsense. It's more out of curiosity. I really want to see what happens. I want to see what happens with the world. I wanted to see what happens to humanity as we evolve, as we become multiplanetary. I'm just very curious. I want to see how the world evolves. I want to be around to see it. And then stay healthy while I'm here. So for me,
Mhm.
health is a huge priority.
Yeah.
So as I started to learn more and more about diet and everything you're talking about here, first it was just macros and counting all that.
Mhm.
Then I was like, okay, I can eat and track my macros, but what about ingredients? What about like different layers of this? What's
Mhm.
in this thing that I'm eating? I
Yeah.
start to break down the ingredients and start to
It's
research some of
huge.
those
Right.
ingredients. Um, and when you do that research, you start to realize the correlations between certain ingredients and certain diseases and sicknesses and all
Mhm.
these different things. And then you start to realize, if you just control your diet and are very, active in terms of doing your own due diligence,
Right.
it's very much the fundamentals of health in general,
Yeah.
lifespan and health span.
Right.
So that to me became a big focus. And then I started really experimenting. I love biohacking. So I started doing fasts, 72-hour fasts,
Yeah.
24-hour fasts every few
You
days,
want to know a fun fact?
Yeah.
I've been fasting for 42 hours. Like I'm fasted right now.
At this point,
Yeah. That's
I
why I
love
keep
it.
drinking this water.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I couldn't even tell.
Yeah,
You're as
it's a
sharp as
major
ever.
misconception with focus and productivity around fasting, but we'll get to that. You go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that too because I actually have gone both ways on that, and I
Mhm,
think I went a little extreme, and I had to bring the dial back to where it worked for me. I think I went
mhm,
a little too extreme on the fasting side. But anyways, the point was, I'm definitely with you in terms of diet, and you can see that when you travel around the world too. When you see different ingredients they use, if I'm eating, pasta when I was in Rome, I was eating it pretty much every day, sometimes
mhm.
twice a day,
Yeah.
and I came back 3-4 pounds leaner than I left.
Mhm,
It's insane.
mhm.
If I have pasta here one day, I'm up like 4 pounds. It takes me like 3 days to get back down to where I was.
Right. Yeah.
There's something in the ingredients,
Yeah.
but also on top of that, then it's the addition of exercise. So why don't you talk about that? Once the nutrition is in place, and that's priority number one,
Yeah.
how do you look at exercise? Because I also think it's also very important. They always say
Yeah.
the best medicine is exercise, right?
Well, I mean, as we talk about all these things, like one thing that I thought about was, motion creates emotion, right? So, like you were talking about how you want to live a certain life and you want to have longevity and you want to can extend this happiness that you've developed. I imagine a lot of that comes from just how active you are, right? Like you talked about moving away from bodybuilding and going into sports and just all the different things that you get from that. Well, it's because like when you're moving your body, like you feel certain things, like your body actually releases certain chemicals in your brain and you release certain hormones that make you feel good. And so just prioritizing movement in any capacity will enhance your quality of life for sure. And as we talk about the health component, obviously, like exercise will extend your life tremendously because a lot of what people don't recognize is we're talking about chronic pain, injuries, we're talking about illnesses and ailments. Man, a ton of them could just be solved with moving more. just moving more, not being as sedentary. And just once you recognize that, incorporating something day to day can help. Now, if you want my personal opinion on what my favorite is, like the best form of exercise there is any form of resistance training, because resistance training has all the properties to extend your life capacities, anti-aging. You're talking about optimizing your hormones for everything that you could possibly want, from fat loss to muscle growth to having some good sex, right? Like everything gets better from resistance training. And aesthetically, right? Like you look better. So there's a confidence component. And I even talked about, chronic ailments and pain and inflammation. Like, the more muscle you have, the least of those things that you experience, the least amount of that stuff you experience. So, I mean, resistance training is where it's at. I always encourage everyone to just incorporate some form of resistance training at whatever level that you're at. It's really the best. And along with that, if you can add just something like, steady state, like some walking, some people like to swim, some people like to bike, right? Things that you can enjoy doing, and it kind of can bring some peace and some clarity to your life. I think you got a better life. I don't know anybody. Think about this, people listening, and you too, Pouya. Have you ever talked to somebody who finished a workout and it was like, shit, man, I regret that, right? Like
Yeah,
that wasn't a
definitely
good
not.
idea. That never happens. Like everybody feels better
Yeah.
after it's over.
Yeah, unless you've been injured, that's never happened.
Yeah, but that's that's a special circumstance.
I had to point out the obvious.
Man,
Somebody was gonna put a comment and say that. So
somebody
I had to.
snapped their leg up, man.
Yeah, I had to just address it. Speaking of snapping legs, just earlier this year, I fractured my tibia plateau in my right knee in the middle of a game, real time action. So yeah, after that game,
you were playing soccer?
I was playing soccer. Yeah. And after that game, I did wish, I did regret. I regretted that game. I regretted that challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course.
There's a guy on my team that broke his leg playing soccer. And I didn't realize that it's such a high risk of injury for this sport, because I didn't play soccer. We didn't have that in Detroit. But but yeah, there's a lot of people that get hurt.
Played hacky sack or something.
They was playing shooting dice and cops and robbers.
Yeah.
That's what they was playing out there. But there's
as long as you're staying active, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
As long as you're moving.
Exactly.
But listen, in terms of exercise, I've heard you say this, and I was actually going to ask you about this. I've heard you say, strength training is the way to go. Yeah. Do not do cardio. I've seen a lot of your content where you're like, you're wasting your time if you're doing cardio. Now, if you walk into any gym, what are you going to see? The treadmills are packed. Ellipticals probably too. Bikes, to some degree. Stairmaster, barely anybody on it. It's probably the same person on it every day. Right. So even then, the easier ones are always taken. But I mean, it's an epidemic of people just doing cardio, right? So what are your thoughts on that, and why do you say that?
So, there's more to it than what I say on those videos. Sometimes I'm sort of making things. I'm really dramatizing some things really to drive my point home. So I'm not saying cardio is useless, right? And I'm not saying don't do it at all. I'm saying don't only do cardio.
I almost want to pull up the video and see what you said exactly. Pretty sure you said something like you're an idiot if you're doing cardio.
I probably did, right? But the main point is don't only do cardio. The people who only do cardio, look at how they look, right? They look all emaciated in the face if they've been doing it for years and years. They look soft, flabby, and frail. They've got a ton of joint pain. Some of them still big. They never lost the weight. They just stayed big because their diet's trash. Because what happens with cardio, man, is if I'm not going to get super geeky and dorky, it really just boils down to it causes your body to burn muscle after so long, right? And so you don't look impressive when you lose the weight. You just look the same, if not flabbier and frailer. And it also slows down your metabolic rate. So your body's not burning as many calories passively. So it's not burning as many calories on its own that it would if you were strength training, right? So you actually increase your likelihood of getting fat again if you just do cardio. And so many people run this cycle over and, no pun intended, but like they they run through this cycle over and over again where they lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, and they can't seem to figure out why the weight won't stay off. And they've never considered that maybe the way that I'm doing it is actually conditioning my body for weight gain again. And that's what cardio by itself does. Anytime I coach my clients on this, I just say, look, cardio is like extra credit. It's like the bonus feature. You ever buy a movie back when DVDs was a thing? I know these listeners might be young, right? There used to be these things called DVDs, right?
Yeah.
You buy it and it's like a movie in there. But then there's like the bonus features of the movie that you could watch if you want. It might be like deleted scenes and shit, but you didn't buy it for the bonus features. You just wanted the movie and they just gave you extra. Well, that's like cardio. Like the core of your programming should be nutrition and strength training. And the bonus feature should be like some cardio on top of that. And it can help you get to your goal faster, but it shouldn't be the crux of it. And so many people just miss that because it's not publicized widely. And like you said, people just sort of resort to what's comfortable and they see it right there. So it's like, all right, I can do that. But there's a lot of fear and misinformation around strength training, which is why people don't gravitate towards that first, even though it's far superior for like long-term fat loss than cardio ever will be. So the summation is, if you want to lose fat and keep it off, lift some weights. If you want to lose muscle and look flabby and frail and get fat again, only do cardio.
I think that clarifies it pretty well. That really does sum it up. I mean, I don't know who would want that second result.
There you go.
And, I think it's just because it's also harder to lift weights, put together an exercise, first of all, to know how to even approach lifting weights, because as well as anybody, there's a million schools of thought.
Yeah.
Right. Are we going strength training? Are we going 5x5s? Are we going hypertrophy training?
Yeah.
I can't even say it right. There's a million ways to go about lifting weights.
Yeah.
There's a million different splits you can do. There's push-pull legs. There's all these things you can do. So I think there's confusion around that.
Yeah.
But I also think it's just hard. It's hard to do that and exert yourself at that level. So people take the easy route.
Yeah. Everything that there's any type of substantial reward from is hard, right? Like, take you, for example, Pouya. You're like about to be married, right? Pretty soon, right? You're engaged. Being with one woman is hard, right? Sure. Committing your life to like being in a long-term relationship with one person is hard. But the long-term rewards of it, from what I've been communicated to me, is like substantially more fulfilling than the easy route of just going to go pick up some chick, you know what I'm saying, at a bar, get her drunk and take her home. That's way easier, right? But is that the most gratifying approach to it? Like, is that the route you want to go for the rest of your life? I don't know. Depends on who you're talking to, right? I mean, a lot of people would agree that like they would ideally want to share their lives with one person. Even though it's the harder route, it's way more gratifying in the long run because you can build a lot more trust and a lot more of a bond, and kids and family, and like there's this lineage factor. Whereas if you just out here, banging sleazies, right? Like, is it as gratifying at the end of the day? It's like short-lived victory, man. So
yeah,
that's what I tell
someone
people
out there is searching on YouTube right now. What exercise is banging sleazies?
It might be on the wrong website, man. It might be a different one they need to go to.
Don't look that up on YouTube. You might have the FBI showing up at your door. Yeah, I mean, a wise man once said, to go back to a more serious train of thought. I love how you said, what did he say? You're all already invested in this wise man. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name. He was actually, I'm pretty certain, a strength coach or a fitness coach.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his name right now. But he said this really wise quote, and it applies to every part of life. And he said, easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life.
Yes.
And that's pretty much exactly what you're referring to here.
Couldn't agree more. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Now, let's say we have those priorities in check in terms of diet, in terms of exercise, and we set some goals for the average person. The average guy is probably what, trying to drop some body fat, put on some lean
Yeah.
muscle,
Yeah.
feel confident, build up their arms or whatever it is. Or they might be playing sports and have specific goals in terms of performance in that regard.
Hmm.
You probably have clients that are entrepreneurs, business owners who want to be more cognitively sharp,
Hmm.
all these different benefits. So we have our clear goals, but a lot of people lack the consistency
Hmm.
to stay on that path. Getting on the path is one thing, staying on the path is a whole different thing. So how do you combat that? What are some pieces of advice, or from your own experience or clients you
Yeah,
work with nowadays?
man, I got so much on this as I finish out my water. Um, I might just like disappear for like 2 seconds and grab my other water bottle, but I'm still here. But
Yeah, no problem.
essentially, I always tell guys that when it comes down to being consistent, the reason that they're not consistent most of the time is there's no accountability. Like there's no real repercussions as to what's going to happen if I don't do this, right? And what causes people to be more accountable, I mean, you can hold yourself more accountable, or you can have outside accountability. Outside accountability is always the best. That's why I even have a business, is because it's always better if somebody else is watching and checking in and monitoring, making sure, because we all tend to do better when other people are watching. That's why there's chain of command in your job. That's why, hell, we were talking about school earlier. That's the only reason we went. We only went because we were being forced to by our parents, and our
Mhm.
parents were being forced by the government to make us go, right? So like there was chains of accountability in these realms that even made us do anything. So everything that really substantially happens in life, there's some accountability. I mean, like we were talking about like marriage and whatnot earlier, like the reason why you continue to like strive for like some type of like financial success, like if you have a family, is because you're held accountable to the fact that if you don't, then they don't eat, right?
Mhm.
So like it's like all these forms of accountability that makes things work, and if you get that in any capacity, it'll make it better. That being said, I think one of the things that people can do if they don't have outside accountability is like tracking, man. Like a lot of guys are just like out here winging it, right? Like that's what I see more so than anything is I tell people the worst diet, this is what I say. The worst diet that there is for fat loss is the healthy choices diet. You know, the healthy choices diet is where you convince yourself that you're making healthy choices, but really you just out here like winging it. You're just putting shit together and you don't really have a plan. And I say that that's stupid for two reasons. One, if you fat, you not an expert on healthy choices, right? Because if you was, you wouldn't have got fat in the first place. So it's stupid
Right.
to follow your own advice, right? And the second thing is like, it's really random, and random actions get you what? Random results.
Random results. Yeah.
So people are on that diet more so than anything, and then they wonder why they don't see the success. And so I think you gotta get a game plan, a proven plan around your goals, your lifestyle. And there's a million different ones you can Google and YouTube anything, but the only thing that's going to keep you sticking to that is tracking it, like tracking your workouts, like what did you do, how much of it did you do, and then week to week, how much did you progress with your diet, especially what did you eat? How much of it did you eat? And what was the result of that consumption with exercise? Did you gain weight? Did you lose weight? Right? And be very objective about this. People get emotional about the results that they have. Like motherfuckers be running from the scale because they don't have any metrics to measure what caused that to happen. So it's sort of like if you went shopping, right? If you wanted to go to the mall and buy a bunch of clothes, right? You wanted to go shopping, you would ideally go in there with what? A budget, knowing what's in your bank account, what you could afford to spend without it putting you back, right? And you would feel comfortable spending money under those circumstances. Well, what a lot of people do with fitness is they just eat whatever and don't track it. So it's the equivalent of going into that same mall and just swiping your card everywhere and then going into overdraft and not understanding why. And that's where the devastation on the scale comes from. It's like, damn, I didn't even know, you know what I'm saying? Like this event, like imagine that same character, somebody stole his bank card and started swiping it everywhere for him. And then he saw his bank statement and was like devastated, right? That's how it feels, like working out really hard and not tracking anything and then not getting results. You feel like somebody stole your bank card and just went shopping with your shit, right? So
Yeah.
I just tell people in a nutshell, like track what you do because it'll empower you. And here's the thing about like tracking it. It's sort of like, we going back to analogies of road trips, Pouya. It's sort of like if you're taking a road trip somewhere that you've never been before, right? If it's a long one, like let's say like 20 hours, like from here to Detroit, you know, it's like 20, 22 hours or something like that. You know, if I've never done that drive before, what's the first thing I'm gonna do? Well, I'm gonna put the GPS, I'm gonna put the address in the GPS that I'm going to. And I get a sense of comfort knowing, oh man, if I just follow the GPS, I'll get there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I just drove and I didn't have a road map, I didn't have a GPS, I might get discouraged along the way because I feel like the journey's so long. 22 hours is a long time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the sort of encapsulation of that is when you're tracking, you see a path from where you are now to where you want to get to, which is encouraging. But when you're only focused on where you want to get to, the result, all you see is the distance. And that distance is where the discouragement is at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. And I like your road trip analogies. And on that road trip, you know, without the GPS, you might just get distracted and pull over somewhere you're not meant to pull over.
Bro,
and then you might decide to stay there. You might decide,
come on, man.
This is a nice town. I'm going to live here.
That's where a lot of people reside right now. They're pulled over on the side, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, it's another analogy. Like the road to success is paved with many tempting parking spots or something like that.
Yeah. Paved with a lot of temptations.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of places where you can settle. And that's true, you know, in business. I felt this when I was in sales too. A lot of times, you know, you start accomplishing a certain level of success. You start hitting certain targets. You start making, you know, a certain amount of money. And, you know, you might think, well, this is pretty comfortable. You know, should I park it up and live here? Or do I want to continue to drive and put myself through the hardships and what else? But, you know, get to the next town. And the next town has some additional perks. You might be like, you know, this town's a little nicer.
Yeah.
I might just stay here. I think this is good enough for me.
Yeah.
And then it's a choice whether you want to keep driving or you want to, you know, live and park it up at that town. So it's definitely the same analogy for business and success financially and for health and fitness. So let's talk about fasting. You're fasting right now for 40 something hours.
Yeah, man.
What's the deal? What are you trying to accomplish here?
I mean, sometimes like I just want to prove to myself that I'm the fucking man still. Like I just challenge myself a lot, bro. So I've been doing these like longer extended like 24 to 48 hour fasts the past few months. First, I started to experiment with it just to show my clients that you could do it. And then obviously to teach them more about it and to be able to speak more intelligently about it. But then the other thing I got from it was, man, it gave me a great reset every single week. You know, it gave me just sort of the sense of clarity. I mean, you guys can look into the studies of how like you detoxify the body and the body repairs itself and you have autophagy and all these different things. But what you also get in those moments when you're fasted is like clarity. Like you get like moments to really like process thoughts devoid of things that may pull your attention and energy towards that, right? A lot of people don't realize like the digestive process, it takes a ton of energy from your body, right? A lot of blood flows into that area. Whereas when it's not going there, you know, it can optimize your thinking. You know?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
I saw it.
I wonder if you know why I'm laughing. No, you know why I'm laughing, man? Because we have a good mutual friend. We're not going to name him here, but we have a good mutual friend who's been a mentor to us both. Great guy. And he always, we'd be on calls or like, you know, meetings with him. And he'd always talk about how hates eating lunch. And this guy is like
Yeah.
classic, high performer, entrepreneur, very
Yeah.
driven, right? So he wants to be like operating like at full, just revving that red line
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Yeah.
So he always talks about, he's like, man, when I eat lunch, I just feel like shit. I hate eating lunch. And
Yeah.
he genuinely hates it with a passion.
Yeah.
He almost like eats out of necessity. But I just remember that as you're talking about like digestion taking longer and slowing you down,
Mm-hmm.
all I was thinking about this guy, and the way he like puts things.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny how he hated eating lunch and then hopping onto a business meeting.
Yeah. 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 Nah, I was laughing at something else that's funnier and more childish than that. But yeah. Yeah. No, that's the thing. It's like, it slows you down to a certain capacity for your body to have to process foods and like distribute the nutrients throughout the body. But then the other thing too is like, I find that, one of the, like, I encourage my clients is like, when you talk about losing like body fat, for example, or getting rid of anything in your life, it's always easier to abstain than it is to limit, right? It's always easier to abstain completely from something than to just to limit, because you give yourself that false sense of, when you're limiting, I can have some and be okay. But then, your body always wants more and more and more, right? So when you abstain, like, you essentially like eliminate the power that thing has over you, right? And so this is why a lot of cultures fast, is to like remove the mental constraints of certain things on them, so that they can take control again. This is back to the analogy of taking the keys back to your life. That's what really like gravitated me towards the whole fasting thing more than anything, is like the mental acuity, the mental strength that I got from like just being able to say, I'll just abstain from doing the thing that everybody feels like they need, right? And I actually fast from a lot of other stuff that's not just food. You know what I mean? And,
Mm-hmm.
and, and I do it not because I have to, but because I want to. Because what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing in that instance is I'm building more mental willpower, more discipline, so that I can apply that to any endeavor or goal that I have, and have full belief and confidence in my abilities, because I've proven to myself I'm willing to do the hard things now, to have that good life later, like you said.
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite thing that you've said on this podcast so far,
Mm.
and that's not trying to limit yourself, but just abstaining like altogether. Just
Yeah.
it's all or nothing, and that's just the way to go. That's what I've always found works for me. I've always been more of an extreme person,
Hmm.
and I do have not an addictive personality, but I'm all or nothing. If I do something, I'm gonna do it all the way. There is no, I do this on weekends.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist for me.
Yeah.
I either do it every day or I don't do it at all.
Yeah.
And I'm very much like that, and that's why I love fasting too. On top of a lot of other things which I want to touch on as well
Yeah.
and talk about, but the whole all or nothing. I love that you said that.
Yeah. I mean, and you said extremists. Like, the thing is, if you want extreme results in your life, you have to be willing to take extreme measures. So you just got to ask yourself, what kind of life do you want? And in there is the answer, what you need to do most.
Now you're talking my language, man.
Mhm.
I talk about things like, fasting for 72 hours or waking up at 4 a.m. or setting extremely high standards for yourself or, always grateful but never satisfied. These kind of things. And I feel like people take it the wrong way, or it just really highlights your own weakness,
Yeah.
and people have a negative reaction to these type of things. Why don't you just live an average life and settle and relax? And, it's not
Yeah.
all about work or discipline. Life is to be lived, to be enjoyed, have a drink, whatever,
Yeah.
and it's just such a different mindset. So I'm so happy that you're saying this.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people have a desire for comfort that actually keeps them soft and mediocre. And, that's okay for some people, because we actually need soft, mediocre people to shame as we look at them from our position of excellence. And I think also, too, when I hear people say that, it encourages me to be like, oh, okay, the path is easier now for me, because more people are submitting themselves to just pacifying and just indulging in hedonism, right? So when I see that, when I see people relaxing and chilling and taking time off, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's less competition out here. Now I can go get it. You know what I'm saying? Y'all can chill. I'm about to go get it. I'm about to go snatch up all this victory while y'all chilling.
I love it. What's the longest fast you've done?
The longest one actually is 48. Surprisingly, I talk about fasting so
Come
much.
on, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Come on, man. Are you open to challenges or what? You said you like to challenge yourself.
Yeah, man. So the idea before the pod today, I was actually talking with somebody.
Oh, here we go. It sounds to me like you're getting out of the driver's seat and the excuses are getting behind the wheel now.
Well, I would do a 72 today if I didn't have to record tomorrow. And when I record tomorrow, I'm doing like fitness stuff. So I just want to have some fuel in the tank. But the goal was like, I'm gonna do a 72 next week. Unless you got a bigger challenge. I mean, what's up?
Next week. I mean, who knows? By next week, we might not even be here. But
Right.
hey, man, it's up to you. You can, but one thing that did happen is that I want to share with you here on the record.
Mhm.
You definitely inspired me to shake things up a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you my word here that I'm gonna go for a long fast starting as of now.
Okay.
As of today. And I'm going to break my own record. My longest fast is 72 hours. So I'm probably going to just do around the same time frame, 73, unless I feel, at that point, I'm just good to go another day or so and raise the bar. But I remember last time I was starving at that point. So I might just keep it around 72, 73. So you definitely inspired me to run that again because you're right. I feel like in a lot of ways, I have been getting weaker. I have been letting certain standards slide when it comes to diet and nutrition because, again, that's not my number one priority. We're both business owners, entrepreneurs, but you're in the health and fitness space. So it makes that your number one priority. But for me, realistically speaking, it's my goals and my business and the family and all of that. And then, getting to the gym and making sure my diet's on point and tracking macros and things like that.
I actually want to say too, like, I love the fact that you said that you're going to reprioritize it because what a lot of guys, I see this so much in what I do. A lot of guys don't prioritize the health and fitness because they feel as though it'll detract from those things. When in reality, it'll only enhance your capability to do those other things better. So if business and family and these causes and purposes in your life are number one, number two, number three priority, let health and fitness propel you to higher levels of achievement in all of those, right? I don't know a guy who's gotten healthier and been a worse father or been a less available husband or not been like, oh man, I got super ripped and I stopped being productive at work because I got distracted by my muscles. Like, people don't say shit like that. Like, everybody improves from being healthier, being in better shape, being more confident, having more energy. So allow these things to sort of be the background things that propel you. Like, it's like that thing on Fast and the Furious movies, the NOS button. You know what I'm saying? You hit the little button and then now the car just goes super fast, right? It's like when you get in shape, that's the NOS button to your life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see anybody life not getting better from that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'm 100% with you, but I'll play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
The alternative school of thought is time. Nobody's arguing that, getting healthier, getting more fit is going to take away from your business or family. It's only going to enhance it, but it's a time allocation. If you're just look at anybody who's really specialized in their realm, like you look at a Warren Buffett, for example, and who's known as what? An investor, right? Who's known as a value investor. He's very much in his own specific niche, you could say, in his own circle. He would say circle of competence, right? He stays in that realm. But besides, being worth $100 billion, which is his number one, I guess, priority, or what he
number, by the way.
Yeah, ridiculous number. Can't even wrap your head around that. And he's given away a lot of it. But besides being at that level of net worth and everything is accomplished in that direction, it seems like that is the sole focus and the number one priority of his life and what he's committed himself to. Because he notoriously talks about getting McDonald's for breakfast every day on the way to work. He drinks Coke on camera and off camera, but I think a lot of that is also because they own a large part of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So it's more advertisement. See's Candy is a company they bought outright. They have the candy. Him and Charlie Munger are eating it all the time in the meetings. So, it seems like a lot of people who have one priority and they go to the extreme with that priority seem to neglect everything else. If you look at Elon Musk today, he's in terrible shape. He's not really looking like he's physically taking care of that at all. All you see is him drinking Diet Cokes, right? So the argument is, if you want to be an extreme performer in one area of your life, you kind of would have to let other things go on the back burner, because all of your time has to be allocated on that thing.
Maybe, it's definitely so. There's some truth in that. Like you're gonna have to go extreme in some way to get some type of extreme success. So if some guys are sacrificing that, I get it. I understand. I think some of it is also like, it's our perception of what they're really doing is skewed because we only are privy to so much information. Like Warren Buffett is how old? Like he's old as hell. And if we're gonna really just say like, all right, he's not doing anything exercise wise that's beneficial to him, I don't know if I believe that he would have made it to this age if that was the case. I mean, he is rich as fuck. So like, yeah, he can afford the best healthcare, right?
Yeah, when you're worth 100 billion, they're probably shooting stem cells in him from Mars or something. Who knows what's in there, man?
So maybe. But then again, like, yeah, I think I have sort of a bias towards vanity, right? Like I don't want to. My goal is not to look like Warren Buffett when I get his age, right?
Right.
Like I'm just not on that side of the fence. Like, am I? Because again, it goes to sacrifice, right? Like you have to sacrifice something. Would I rather be looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger and be worth, 100 million, or would I rather be, looking like Warren Buffett and be worth 100 billion, right? Like, what's the real difference at that point of wealth? Like, am I really losing out on so much like abundance that like my life is ruined? I don't know. It just depends. But like, I look at guys like that, and they're not what I aspire to look like if I had that type of wealth. So I get their sacrifice because they don't want to look like me. They want to be like them and have that money, right? But I also don't want to look like them for the sake of having that money, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's all about your priorities and how you define success, how you define a good life. And this turned into a Warren Buffett roast session. But this is with all due respect, man. With all due respect, and honestly, man, for a 94, I think year old guy, he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think that wasn't even a good example. I think a better example would be comparing like a Zuckerberg to like a Bill Gates. Bill Gates is completely out of shape, body's not looking that great. And obviously he's got a lot of other priorities and directions he's going.
Right.
But you have a Zuckerberg who's also worth billions, but he's an example of having it all because he's training jiu-jitsu now. He's winning jiu-jitsu competitions. Exactly. He's very much surfboarding, all the things that he does. He's very active in that direction. So I'm a believer in that. I think you could have it all. It comes down to priorities.
Yeah.
And I think where it goes overboard is if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you have other priorities, but you put all your time and energy into fitness. If you're in the gym 5 hours a day, but you're not working on your business, obviously your priorities are backwards.
Right.
But there's no excuse for getting an hour or two of exercise in every day and being consistent.
And I think like there's going to be a sacrifice somewhere. Like, so like, all right, we using Zuckerberg and we use Elon Musk. Elon Musk, while he's not in the shape Zuckerberg's in, he's doing other things with his time Zuckerberg don't do. Like last I checked, Elon Musk got a bunch of kids, right? Right. Mm-hmm. So he's out here laying the pipe down. He's doing this thing in that realm where I don't think Zuck is out here investing a bunch of time. What did we say earlier? Banging sleazies.
Yeah. Full circle. This has been a very informative podcast.
It's a sacrifice thing at the end of the day. It's a game of life's a game of trade-offs, guys. And
that's exactly.
I was telling one of my clients earlier that you got to think of like, your life is just yeses and nos, right? And every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. But here's the thing. You have a limited number of things you can say yes to. So it's sort of like a gun with ammo. Like you only have so many bullets. So you only have so many yeses. And once you run out, like that's it. That's it for the day. You have to wait until the next day and reload your ammo. And so, I mean, maybe, people are deploying their yeses toward the direction of things that are like the top priority for them. And the other ones are just like, they're just not getting any attention, or they're getting very minimal. But essentially, that's how you got to look at it. Like, it's yeses and nos, and you only have so many that you can give. So, I mean, it just depends
Yep.
on what you want your life to be full of. And that's the beauty of it, right? You get to choose.
I love that concept of life being a game of trade-offs, because that's really what it is. You're always choosing,
Mhm.
whether you know it or not. And some people like to, again, take the victim role and say, well, I didn't choose this or I didn't choose that. And
Mhm.
all of our decisions, and also, yes, circumstances in life have led to where we are. But the point is to take personal responsibility for that and try to turn things around. But to wrap up the topic of fasting, I was going to say, you definitely inspired me to get that back into gear, because the number one thing that I take away every time I do a fast,
Mhm.
and again, I was the very extreme end of fasting for a while,
Yeah.
where I was doing a lot of long-term fasts almost too frequently. And I almost looked at it as, starve myself. But then
Mm.
afterwards, after these long fast sessions, I would binge a lot. And then I
Mm.
realized, that's not healthy either. And
Right.
I even when I was doing OMAD, 1 meal a day, and
Right.
things of that nature, that didn't work well for me either, because again, that one meal becomes a huge meal.
Right.
Now it messes up your portions and
Right.
all these things. So I've tried pretty much everything there is, and I've experimented with all these things, because I just enjoy, again, biohacking. But what I've realized is just eating specific food. So I've gone on elimination diets where I've cut a bunch of things out, and now I know what I don't respond well to.
Right.
And I pretty much eat the same thing all the time. I pretty much have the same meal every single day.
What's your
It's been
meal?
like that
What's
for a
your
long
go-to
time.
meal, bro?
It's usually lean beefs, so either steaks or lean ground beef
Yeah.
or things of that nature. I go on the beef side. I've once I heard that chickens are nervous birds, I was like, all right, I can't be having chickens anymore. I'm not much of a seafood guy, but I've tried to
Yeah.
incorporate that more and more.
Yeah.
I make like a homemade salad, and
I'm
I have.
curious, man, not to cut you off. What's your favorite cut of steak?
It depends. It depends. Honestly, I don't have one. There's all different cuts, right? I get whatever I see that's like grass fed, organic.
Hmm.
It looks good. I'll get it. So I go to different like butcher shops, and I'll just pick out whatever I like at that time.
Yeah.
But I also eat like organ meats. I love beef liver,
Yeah.
things of that nature. So I don't discriminate there.
Yeah, man.
And then I make a homemade salad that I like. It's pretty much the same salad all the time, with just some salt, olive oil, and sometimes a bit of balsamic, but usually just salt and olive oil.
Mhm.
And then sweet potatoes.
It's good.
Sweet potatoes in the
Good stuff.
oven. That's pretty much my go-to all the time. That's my go-to dinner.
Right.
And then my lunch or brunch, you could say, is usually just eggs, just like an omelet or just eggs.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in there, I might have a protein shake, just with water, like clean one. But that's pretty much it. And then I have 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day.
Mhm.
I usually limit coffee at 3 p.m. So after 3, I usually don't drink coffee
Mhm.
unless it's a off situation. But that's pretty much the rule of thumb. And a lot of water in
Yeah.
that. And fruits is the only other thing. So my way of getting sugars and getting something I enjoy that's delicious and that I don't really put a cap on is
Yeah.
fruits.
Got you. Got you. All right.
That's what that looks like.
That's good stuff, man. I mean,
Yeah. But
your diet is. I think one good point that anybody listening to this can take away is you're talking about optimizing performance being like your biggest priority right now, right? Like
Mhm.
all you named was like whole natural non-processed foods.
Yeah.
The best quality stuff is the stuff that's like less than 4 ingredients is what I talk to people about. So like all
Mhm.
that stuff is one ingredient. It is what it is. It's fruit. It's
Exactly.
just the meat. It's just the potato. Like it's not a bunch of processed, meaningless BS put together to package and just make you desire more of it, right? So I think you're hitting the nail right on the head of a lot of what I preach anyway. It's like just the best food sources is natural stuff.
Yeah, and I have a lot of walnuts and pistachios and almonds too, which I forgot about. But if
Yeah.
I'm having a protein shake or something, I'll have that as like a snack in
Yeah.
between the day. But that's pretty much it. Like you said, yeah, it's all whole foods. It's all homemade. It's all the same ingredients, and it's all the same things. And I pretty much eat the same thing all the time. And I know it
Mhm.
sounds boring, but it's like wearing this shirt. I'm not looking to fatigue myself and my cognitive abilities trying to decide what to eat today or what to wear today.
Yeah.
That needs to be taken care of and handled and out of my way because I got other decisions to make.
Right.
And I got other things where I need my mental energy to go. So those are my thoughts on that. But the point of all this was that I was fasting a lot back then.
Mhm.
And I realized it was all very unhealthy. And it was like the classic yo-yo dieting. And it was a lot of going crazy extreme and then binging. So I decided, to cut back on the fasts and, just do them here and there if I feel like I need a real reset. But the number one thing I always took away from fasting was the mental discipline.
Yeah.
All the, autophagy and whatever you want to say, the cells rebuilding themselves and your system taking a break and all the benefits that come with it. Amazing. That's all there for sure.
Mhm.
The cognitive sharpness they talk about is all there, but the number one thing I took away was just knowing like I could go 72 hours without eating food.
Yeah.
If things came down to it, most of the planet is so freaking weak. A lot of my own good friends can't go 20 minutes without a snack, and that to me is pathetic.
Yeah.
Like if you told me, something happened the next 24 hours, you can't eat anything. No problem.
Yeah.
That's easy. That's easy work. I've done that a million times, right? So that mental discipline and taking charge is what I love about it. And when you were talking about your fast right now, I got this feeling that in the back of my head, and I'm being weak right now. I've lacked that discipline. It's been a while since a long fast, and I instantly triggered that thought, and I just decided, literally as you were talking, that's it. I'm breaking my fast record as of now. So thank you.
No problem, man. Yeah, I'm glad I could inspire that within you. It's interesting when you talk about like just that belief that you get from fasting. Like that's why I tell people like go the hard route of whatever it is that you're looking to do, like whether it's fitness, whether it's the nutrition, like do the difficult things now because not only will it be easier later, but you'll be better equipped later. And you have a certain sense of belief in yourself. If you encounter adversity, once you've seen yourself overcome things, confidence comes from competence. And that's just like, being good at things or being good at a thing. And, the thing that I think holds people back from taking action is they don't believe enough in themselves that they're good at anything because they haven't taken the time to put themselves under enough duress and adversity to get good at things or to build that discipline within themselves to say, hey, I've watched myself overcome adversity. I can handle whatever comes my way. That's what fitness, nutrition, fasting, whatever, that's what it does for me. That's what it does for my clients. And I encourage everybody, like in some capacity, make that a part of your life because it just builds this internal belief and resolve in you to like, no matter what comes your way, like you can handle it. And you feel like you better than everybody, man. Like I love walking into places and being like, yo, I'm in the best shape here. Like none of these guys look like how I look naked, right? Pause, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like really in that state of abundance. Like, all right, man, like if it comes down to it, like from a survival standpoint, from a attraction standpoint, from a achievement standpoint, like I'm top tier, and I can hang my hat on that. And then, that inspires the next person because they see you do it. They believe they can do it too. So it ain't just about you, bro. You do better. You make the people around you better.
I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to spend time talking about business and branding and all of that, but I've taken up too much of your time. So I think that's going to have to be part two of this podcast. I didn't realize how many stories and tangents and how many drives we're going to go on, road trip today. I didn't realize all that was to come. So, I didn't really prepare accordingly. But obviously, in the online space, you've got a big brand that you've built and are continuing to build. Hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of views on your stuff. And obviously you're helping a lot of people as a result. So we'll talk about the branding side, online space, business, all of that when we have you back on. But as we start to wrap this up, I want to ask you in terms of the future, if you're looking into, the next 12 months, the next 2 to 3 years, what do you see, generally speaking, whether it's areas of your life, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's business, as areas that you want to prioritize or things that you're thinking, I'm doubling down on this. These are some things that, I really want to go hard at. And in 12 months and 3 years, I want to see myself and who I become as a result of that. What are some of those things?
I know that in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm gonna retire my mom. Like that's one of the top goals. So we got to get her out of her job and get her, just set up somewhere where she doesn't have to worry about anything financially. And then from there, the business, we're going to be $1 million company pretty soon. We might even hit that before I retire my mom. I'm not sure, but we're on the fast track to that. And I guess we can delve deeper into that on part two. But
Hmm.
once I get there, I right now, obviously primarily focus on the fitness and health space. I do want to get into more mindset and then finance too. I kind of have this trifecta of helping guys, get their body right, get their mind right, get their money right. And those are the things that I'm going to prioritize, as I continue to evolve. But right now we just focus on thing number one, which is the body, the thing you have the most control over today.
Got it. I like that you have clear targets and sort of what's driving you.
Mhm.
And I think that driving factor is obvious when you see the results, right? When you see the day to day and the work ethic and all of that. Last question I ask everybody, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. This is like the cult you joined. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, guys. No offense to those guys. I don't know who they were.
Yo, shout out
We
to
didn't mention any
them.
names. But I feel like with you, this question could go either way.
Right.
But I like to ask everybody, knowing everything you know today and
Mhm.
based on who you are today, if you could go back to yourself when you were younger and you were just starting your path, what would be the one single piece of advice that you'd give yourself?
Oh man, just never take for granted the moment that you're in, because there's some type of value there. You know, like I look back at things that I quote unquote would say that are regrets for me, that really in hindsight, would I really have become the person I am today if not for those regrets? Right. Like I even go back to the story earlier of me telling you about the girl who's my best friend who passed away, and things that I wanted to say that I never said. Well, yeah, I could say I wanted to say these things to her before she passed, but would I really have been so compelled to move and take action on my life if I would have let all that go and wouldn't have this baggage essentially? I don't know the answer to that, right? I really don't. So, I think really just to look back at every experience and experience like, okay, there's some value here. Just enjoy this for what it is and be grateful that you even were given this, and know that you could learn something if you want to from this later. I think that's the best advice. Like where you at right now is exactly where you're supposed to be. If and if you're not where you want to be, then you can do something about it because you still got time.
That's a beautiful place to wrap up. Cory, my man, this was a lot more fun than I even thought it would be. Thank you so much for
Likewise.
being here, and I'm excited for part two.
Yeah, man, me too. Appreciate you having me.